Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. Today, as you see, we're going to be looking at alien abductions or strange disappearances. Today, we're looking at people who've disappeared under mysterious circumstances again. You know, like the cases of the missing 411, people who disappear out in America's national parks, or other strange appearances that could be alien, either alien abductions or maybe people just going missing under mysterious circumstances. Either way, folks, we're having some fun today. So let me go to share screen and basically show off artwork from your upcoming graphic novel, Scumdogs. Let me go over here real quick and see about this. Make sure like that. Either way, let's go over here, and here's the Extreme 90s cover for my graphic novel Scumdogs. Yeah, I'm going to show off artwork from my own upcoming graphic novel Scumdogs before we get into this live stream today, folks. Now, as you can see, this cover here has all the characters that'll be, at least a good many of the characters that'll be appearing in my graphic novel in this variant cover. You'll have a choice of two other variant covers as well when my graphic novel goes live on Indiegogo. Either way, the stars of my book are the Scumdogs, who are, well, loving parodies of 80s cartoons characters. The Scumdogs want to take over the universe because in the far future, thanks to magic and science, people can alter their bodies any way they want, becoming superhumanly powerful monsters. And because of this, new sporting events are held with these superhuman beings as the competitors. From my description, they don't exactly sound like nice people, do they? Because they basically transform themselves into monsters for fame and fortune, right? So what happens when they get banned from sports? The Scumdogs decide to take over the universe. They're led by Deathmug. Deathmug is the purple guy with the metal mask over here. Deathmug is a parody, is based on and is a parody of various villains from 80s cartoons. If you notice, I made Deathmug look like Skeletor from He-Man because both characters have skulls for faces. You know, Skeletor from He-Man, from the main villain from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Deathmug is also colored purple like the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, I based his personality on Carlton. As I've explained in other live streams, Carlton was the second banana character on Will Smith's old show. You know, his old show he had in the 90s named Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. A lot of the comedy on the show usually came at Carlton's expense because Carlton was an arrogant and over-the-top kind of a prissy character who always thought he was the greatest man in the room and was so cool. A lot of the comedy on the show usually came at Carlton's expense, as the other characters usually pointed out his shortcomings and stupidity. I always thought if Carlton had superpowers, he'd become a supervillain because he's just that arrogant. Either way, I took Carlton, crossed him over with Skeletor, and created Deathmug, an arrogant dictator who wants to rule the universe. And if you think he's insane, let me tell you about his archenemy, Buick Starpoon. Buick Starpoon is the guy with the pink pompadour hair over there in the green and white uniform. Buick Starpoon is what you get if you take J. Jonah Jameson, the editor of the Daily Bugle from the Spider-Man movies, and crossed him over with Buck Rogers. He's an inept military commander who leads his team, the Wild Rangers, in epic battles against the Scumdogs and usually squeaks out a win. But then again, he's not exactly competent, but neither are the Scumdogs, because my book is a parody book, lovingly parodying 80s cartoons, so no one can actually be competent in my book. Either way, Buick Starpoon is the leader of the Wild Rangers, and that means because they're a parody of G.I. Joe, each of them has a military specialty like a G.I. Joe. Basically, they're special skills and abilities that allow them to fight their enemies. It'll help me tell you about the Wild Rangers now. And you should know, each of the Wild Rangers wears a similar uniform to Buick Starpoon's green-white. So over here, this guy with the mohawk and navy blue and white uniform, his name is Roadhog, and his military specialty is that he's a soldier from the U.S. Army. He was transferred over to the Wild Rangers to use his skills to fight the Scumdogs. Then you have this bald guy down here in the blue and white uniform. His name, you see him right here? Huh? His name is Beach Pounder, and his military specialty is that he's a Marine. Yeah. Then you have the guy back here in the red uniform. His name is Blast Tank, and his specialty is that he's a tanker. You know, he drives around weaponized vehicles like tanks into battle. And, well, he drives around weaponized tanks and stuff like that. Either way, this covers one of 3 different variant covers you can back, so that's also pretty good. But let's go over here and look at Girl Friday, the female member of the Wild Rangers. Now, Girl Friday is a parody of those female confidant heroes you always see on these kinds of cartoon shows. You know, the one girl type character. Well, Girl Friday might be named Girl Friday, but she's no Girl Friday. She hates Buick Starpoon, and she only helps she only helps him lead the team because she was ordered to by her superiors. Otherwise, she hates their guts. She might be named Girl Friday, but she's no Girl Friday. Now we have Death Mug's henchman. Well, she hates Buick Starpoon because she thinks him and his team are just idiots. Either way, we have Murder Mouth and Sloppy now. These guys are Death Mug's henchmen. The big fat pink guy down here is Sloppy. He has shape-shifting powers. And the blue guy with the top hat is Murder Mouth. As I said, these guys are Death Mug's henchmen because all villains needed dumb henchmen, so these guys are it. Then we have Hair Metal Doctor. Hair Metal Doctor is a member of the Scumdogs, but if you notice, he's a human. If you're wondering why, he's a mad scientist, hair metal musician. They hired the Scumdogs hired him to invent weapons and machines. Yeah, they hired him to invent weapons and machines so they can take over the universe because he's a mad scientist, but he's also a hair metal musician. Because I thought that'd be awesome to have as a villain. Then we have Miss Breasty Melons. Now, Miss Breasty Melons is a bored woman. She's incredibly rich and has everything, but when she saw the Scumdogs go and become villains, she decided to back and fund all of their evil schemes with her vast fortune. She thinks of herself as an evil villainess, so she dresses up in a female spy's catsuit to make her look like a supervillain. But really, she's just an idiot like the rest of the characters. But that tells you about my characters from my book, Scumdogs, folks. Go back Scumdogs when it's finally finished. You're going to love it. By the way, let's go over here and look at some Indiegogos real quick. All right. See down here. We have Hag, Agents of Hag comic book. Not bad. Menopausal woman and 12 full color pages of full color packed action. 247, 15 days left. Doesn't look too good here, folks. I'm just giving it a quick look. Well, thinking maybe I'm not too sure. Let's just check out this book. A menopausal women and sidekick in 12 full color pages of thrill packed action. Your Agents of Hag is a 12 pages of color of thrill-packed comic book action of widely canceled yet still existent cartoonist and animator. Synopsis: women are disappearing from all over the internet, but who is disappearing them? Menopausal women and psychic tracks down the nefarious Banhammer and get help along the way from an unexpected ally. Banhammer? Oh, I get it. Because he's one of those man children, huh? You know, he's an incel. Okay, I didn't think this looked too good, but maybe it's just a loving parody of such things. About the artist. Nana Pauli is best known for her animated feature films Stiga Sings, The Blue, and Sita Machosiism. Back in the day, she was once a comic book artist, producing a couple of one-offs with Dark Horse and deli strips with King Features and United Features Syndicate, as well as her self-syndicated weekly Nana's Adventures in 2017. She got canceled for saying women didn't have penises. Okay, now I like this woman. She actually seems to be stuff. It's just that she actually seems to know what she's talking about now because she actually went against the grain here, okay, and has been person non grata in the animation and comics world ever since. She currently co-hosts the Heterodoxy podcast with Corinna Cohen and continues to create a variety of independent art projects, including Mystic Symbolic in 2020 and Apocalypse Animated. Now she's doing this comic book. Okay, she's making fun of incels here, so, well, fine and stuff like that. I'm just not so sure I trust what I'm seeing here because this looks like the typical stuff. But then again, it doesn't mean that incels shouldn't be made fun of, or this woman here being made fun of either. Remember, we're having a menopausal woman and her sidekick kicking people's butts. Okay, it looks funny and somewhat good. The artwork is, well, just your typical cartoon art style. So I'm not too bad about it. Single book, $10. You can back this book for $10, folks. Not bad for the price and not a bad looking book. So go back and Hag if you want. Agents of Hag. Either way, let's go over here now. Because it's just, the book looks like it's a SJW fan fest. But then again, it looks like this woman was basically taken out by the SJWs. And you should at least maybe give it a try and stuff if you want. The artwork is, as I said, a cartoon style and not too bad. I think it looks better than the typical Cal art style a bit. I mean, it looks like in the same of what's the name of that comic book from the 90s? It was basically a Conan parody and looks like that as well. We also have other books we can look at. UFO Man, a limited comic book series, $35 with 38 days left. We also have Fiendish Chapter 2 Origins. It's made 145,441. Fiendish you can back for $25 for this campaign. You can also back the original Fiendish Chapter 1 for $25 as well. So back Chapter 2 you can back Chapter 2 if you've already have that book for $25. Either way, folks, maybe we should move on and look at some interesting disappearances of people and stuff like that. Over here, we have this article over here. We can take a quick look at. Where are you? Oops, I think I went too far. Let's see down here. The truly bizarre case of Granger Tyler. We'll start off with this article right here, folks. The case of Granger Tyler truly is bizarre in every sense of the word, and while it is an account that is seemingly easy to brush off as the ravings of someone slightly beyond eccentric, there is also something about the incident that niggles away at the minds of even the most skeptical and conservative person. According to the accounts of his friends, Tyler had received messages from alien entities, and what's more, they had invited him to take him on just on just short of a 4-year journey around the universe. What makes these claims even more unnerving is that Granger Tyler seemingly literally disappeared into thin air. Just what happens to this undoubtedly hugely intelligent, almost unnaturally gifted young man? Why was he so sure of his impending cosmic journey, and where is he or his remains today? He would leave a note for his parents, which we will examine shortly, and in 2 purposely drafted wills to make everything legal, left all of his possessions to them with instructions on how to share them out. Interestingly, the word deceased was removed from the wills and replaced with the word departed, and his bank account was $10,000, also now in the care of his parents. Of course, like many of these seemingly strange cases we examine, sometimes lost in all the outlandishness, is that very real people stand at the center of such accounts, whether it be families and friends of such people or the witnesses themselves. This is undoubtedly the case with Granger Tyler, so much so that almost 40 years later, investigations, official and unofficial, continue into his fate of whereabouts, and it is most likely that Granger Tyler case will remain unsolved for the foreseeable future. A contemporary legend in real time. On the evening of 29th November, 32-year-old Granger Tyler would leave his parents' home and set out on his blue Datsun pickup truck, driving away into a particularly heavy storm. In fact, so intense was the storm that it caused widespread power outages for large portions of Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. When we take in consideration that Tyler has not been seen or heard from again, as well as all the contents of the note he would leave behind for his parents, which you can see below, we should perhaps wonder, if only speculatively, if the storm and subsequent power cuts might have been have more behind them than Mother Nature. Interesting. Here's his note, apparently. Dear Mother and Father, I have gone away to walk on board an alien spaceship. On reoccurring dreams assured a 42-month interstellar voyage to explore the vast universe, then return. I am leaving behind all my possessions to you, as I will no longer require the use of any. Please use the instructions in my will as a guide to help. Love him. What's his name again? Tyler, Granger Tyler? Yeah, Granger Tyler here, huh? Either way, the note reads in full. Dear Mother and Father, I just read that already. The contents of the note raised an eyebrow or two among the wider population, and investigators who would examine the cases. Did the map lean to mountains around 20 miles away? Were these the location of Tyler's apparent meetings with this alleged extraterrestrial contact? We have examined on several occasions UFO and alien encounters that have taken place on or around some of the world's most famous mountains. I guess so. What do you think about that, folks? Very strange story there. Perhaps of further interest, certainly for those who subscribe to the ancient astronaut theories, that many of historical legends, like Moses and other such things, take place around mountains. There's also beliefs. Remember, the Monkey King basically was able to lift a couple of mountains with his strength and stuff like that. Other legends of such things are interesting as well. There's also the Nordic legends of giants basically being mountains and other such things. All very interesting when you think about it. Yeah. Either way, the legends and stuff like that might be perceived, as UFO encounters also take place near such mountains. Might the mysterious events of 29th November 1980 be such a contemporary legend in the making? An eccentric genius. Growing up particularly in a small town environment, Duncan Granger Tyler was always known to be gifted. Some, in fact, would label the young man as an eccentric genius. From an early age, he was able to take part and repair electrical and mechanical devices, usually teaching himself how to do so. Perhaps interestingly, Tyler didn't bring these skills or enthusiasm to his schoolwork and would essentially drop out of school without finishing. Regardless, his talents to all that knew him were genuine and obvious, so much so that he earned a decent living from them. He would remain living at the family home with his mother and stepfather until the day he disappeared. In the property and around the yard, his inventions and mechanical constructions were often strewn about. Okay, here's a picture of him, Granger Tyler. Okay, he would often manage to restore broken and ruined machines and vehicles to the former glories. However, perhaps one of the most impressive such restorations was with an old steam locomotive, which would eventually be purchased by the Providence of British Columbia for touring and display purposes. This project is even more impressive when we realize he personally located and dragged the rusting train through thick woodland before any repairs could have begun. He would also restore a Kitty Hawk warplane. This was ultimately sold to a collector for $20,000 in 1981 by Granger's parents. They would subsequently deposit the money in his account. He would also obtain his pilot's license around the same time. It also around this time that Tyler's interest in UFOs and specifically how they operated would go into overdrive. A telepathic message from space. He would even build a flying saucer sanctuary under trees near his parents' home out of scrap metal. His stepfather would later tell how Tyler had built the replica spaceship over the course of around 6 months. He would often spend hours on end inside, even sleeping there on occasion. Inside was a television, a stove, and a couch. It was during this time, in the final years of the 1970s, when Tyler spent most of his time attempting to understand how these technical crafts from other worlds operated. He would spend hours reading as many books on the subject as he could. How they functioned, huh? He would spend, he wanted to understand how these technical crafts from other worlds functioned, huh? Here's what he built and stuff like that. Oh, I think I've seen this before as well in other stories talking about this. Very interesting. It was also during this is a picture of the artificial UFO he built. He wanted to understand how these creatures, how these crafts functioned. So he basically built an artificial one and see how it would be like to live in one. Probably put a chair in there and maybe some living stuff. Just an idea of how it would be to live in a spaceship like that. Yeah, I get the idea. It was also during this time when he would take the first steps toward his ultimate decision to take to the road in the middle of a severe storm that late night in 1980. He would inform one of his friends, Nelson, only a month before he disappeared, that he had received a telepathic message from space. In light of his sudden disappearance, Nelson would state to reporters that Tyler had claimed to have received the mental communications and began asking questions of the UFO propulsion systems. Nelson would claim their reply was merely that it is as magnetic. Several days after this first revelation, Tyler would approach Nelson again. This time he would tell him of the invitation he had received to go on a trip through the solar system. Whether Nelson believed his friend's claims or not, Tyler most certainly did. Many people who knew him in his final days in Duncan would claim he would speak of his upcoming journey in a very matter-of-fact way. The only thing he didn't know was when he would be leaving and where he was to go to be collected. A purposely planned last meal at Bob's Grill. This last point is potentially important, asserting the authenticity of the claims of Granger Tyler. Had he been making such claims merely for attention, then he surely would have persevered with this last crucial point. However, it's not a detail he ever mentioned to any of his friends or family. It would appear, if we accept his claims for a moment, that these instructions were purposely last minute, or he was instructed to keep the details to himself. There was one hint that he did know the details of his upcoming departure. A week before his disappearance, he would insist on taking several of his friends out for drinks. In retrospect, this appears to be a sort of going away party. Bone fragments spell and end to mystery of space buff. Newspaper clippings about what had happened to him. Of course, it very well could be the case that Tyler was telling the outright truth. If only in his own mind. Several of his friends would state that Tyler was using acid regularly and on a daily basis, and in the week leading up to his disappearance, whether this was of consequence or not is open to debate. Maybe. What we do know is that around 6 p.m. on the evening of 29th November 1980, the predicted and expected storm clearly brewing around the small town. Okay. A storm was brewing around before his disappearance. That's very interesting. Either way, folks, let's see. What else is there to say? Sorry about the very, very early stream. I just got up and stuff like that. Decided to do it now and basically have some fun with you, folks. Hope you're enjoying it, but either way, let's continue. Brewing around the small town of Duncan, Tyler. Around the small town before everything else happened, of Duncan and stuff like that. Yeah, the small town of Duncan, where this was taking place. Tyler would make his way to Bob's Grill, a diner where he ate regularly, just as he did this evening. He remained there for about half an hour, leaving at 6:30 p.m. The waitress on duty that evening, Linda Barron. She was most likely the last person to see Tyler. She remembers how he was clearly not dressed appropriately for the upcoming storm, which was just beginning to unleash the damage it would bring as he was leaving the diner. Gone. Searches for this reclusive but popular Grange Tyler would begin almost immediately. The following day, however, there was absolutely no sign of him. There was also no sign whatsoever of his blue truck. This last detail particularly frustrated Royal Canadian Mounted Police RCMP investigators. They would think, assuming that all Tyler had said was true, he would have left his truck somewhere in plain sight, despite the Tyler family placing regular advertisements offering crash rewards for information about the vehicle. No calls were forthcoming. In 1986, at least according to some sources, fragments of the same make of truck were found on Mount Sicker near Duncan. From the analysis of them, it appeared they had been in a massive explosion. Furthermore, it would appear that fragments were discovered in a crater on the mountain. According to one book, Alien Encounters by Time Life, Tyler was carrying explosives in the truck at the time of his disappearance. Of course he was. Why wouldn't he? It's strange. I find that strange myself. As intriguing as this apparent development might seem, the RCMP investigation appeared to dismiss them. Furthermore, there was no sign of a body or the remains of one at the site in question. Essentially, both Granger Tyler, either alive or dead, and his truck remained missing. Might his claim of extraterrestrial contact be true? Might that be why he appears to have literally vanished from the face of the planet? Or, given that there is a little to no reason to suspect foul play, might there be a more terrestrial, although no less intriguing explanation? A true mystery of our times. There are several other possibilities besides the alien contact scenario as to what might have happened to Granger Tyler, although none of them on their own provide a completely and satisfactory explanation. For example, it would perhaps make sense that Tyler made the decision to commit suicide and used the last weeks of his life to set up the scenario of alien contact to explain his disappearance. However, that wouldn't explain why his body remains missing. Furthermore, why would someone so desperate so that they felt the need to take their own life spend time creating such an elaborate hoax? Just to screw with people, honestly, but I kind of think that's a little out there as well. One that they would not see the full fallout from, no less. Or might Tyler have simply wished to start again somewhere where no one knew him? If that was the case, though, we would imagine that even the best hiders would show up somewhere at some stage over the decades. That's what you think, particularly as we moved into the 21st century and the digital era. Or might, particularly if we accept the words that some of his friends who claim he was taking acid daily in the weeks leading up to the incident, Tyler have generally imagined the telepathic message and impending traveling across the cosmos were real. If that was the case and the whole scenario was out of Tyler's mind, where is Granger Tyler in his truck? That is true. If this was an hallucination, where is he? As unlikely as it seems, then, might it be possible that everything the quiet but eccentric Taylor claimed was true? Might he have gone on board an alien spacecraft that evening? And if that is the case, however, why has he not returned? It truly is bizarre and unsettling mystery. Check out the video below. It looks at the strange case of Ranger Tyler in a little more detail. You could look at this. Let's see about this video. Harrison Peters. Is this I'm just trying to save. Oh, looks like I probably won't get a copyright strike if I were to look at this. Where will I? Let's see how long this video is. Ooh. See, it looks a little too long, folks. Don't really think I want to do that. But what do you think about what we talked about tonight? Do you think Ranger Tyler, Mr. Tyler here, was allowed to go on an alien spacecraft? And you gotta understand, folks, 4 years for aliens, that's gotta be nothing, right? But you gotta understand, I've heard of other stories of people who basically came from Earth and were seen among aliens, said that they were at least decades older than they were, that in outer space that they didn't age. So this guy could very well come back and he might still be the same age, faster than light travel, at least on some level. And if that's the case, I guess he'd have to have the government give him a new identity because he wouldn't basically be around his friends. I mean, the government, hopefully, God knows what the government would do to this guy. They'd probably just disappear him if he were to come back. If they are so adamant on keeping the alien secret and all that. We have no idea what would happen if he did come back and it was just the same age. That would just prove if he could prove who he was. That would just prove that he was abducted by aliens because he would come back as a 32-year-old man, or at least in his 30s, 40 years after he disappeared, when he should be in his 70s. He should be 74 years old. That would if he could prove who he was, that would prove that he'd been somewhere that no man had been before, especially if he remained young. But what do you make of it, folks? Do you think it's true or not? Very well could be. Let me go over here. Anyone watching? Hit that like button if you have not, folks. It really helps me. Either way, let's see. Oh, not too bad. If you're not hit the like button, folks, please do so. It really helps me. Remember, down in the descriptions, I left links to Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, and BitChute. And what do you think about Granger Tyler's behavior? How he left his parents behind? That's a very sad thing. But also the fact that he basically literally talked with his friends and even talked about what he was doing. It seems to me he was planning all this out, and this does not seem like the mind of a suicidal man. I can imagine this basically being a disappearance to go around screwing with people because that sounds like fun and stuff like that. But then again, it was also a bad thing that he hurt his parents like that by disappearing on them like that. But what do you make of it? What is the truth of what happened to this guy? Where did he go? Was he basically not abducted, but literally contacted by aliens and is now out in outer space? But why didn't he come back if that's all true? And if they would have had to return him back in the same decade, because otherwise, well, he literally comes back with physical proof of aliens. If he came back now and he proved who he was, that would be proof that he was Granger Tyler. And that guy's understanding he might have already come back anyway, but the government could have taken him. God knows they might have disappeared him and killed him and stuff like that, just to keep, as I said earlier, the secret. It's all interesting to think about and stuff like that. But I also have other articles to look at. But then again, maybe I do want to watch this video here a bit, at least part of it. I think I should just speed this up. Maybe just go. I'm not so sure I can watch the rest of this, folks. I just wanted to take a quick look at this and stuff like that. Okay, so the aliens that we're seeing there probably basically inspired, well, Granger Tyler to basically in the town of Duncan to basically look at UFOs a bit more in focus. And somehow, maybe this experience of seeing these, this experience of hearing about these aliens somehow, and when he basically started delving into their secrets and trying to think about how their vehicles could work, this somehow, as I said before, caused the aliens to single him out and find him and to basically look at him and basically pick him to possibly go out into space with them. Very interesting, if true, folks. Very interesting. But I have to move on with this live stream. I took a few minutes out to look at this, and I think I've done enough here. I need to basically go on and stuff like that. Just giving you a quick idea there. I can't look at the entire video because I don't have the time. But you get an idea that probably those aliens, with the experience that those two nurses saw at that hospital, probably inspired Tyler to basically, well, it probably inspired him to delve into the alien subject, and this in turn basically possibly made him, basically singled him out by the aliens for contact. Either way, I have this article over here I want to read to you guys too, folks, and I want to get to it before anything else happens. So let's go down here. Where are you? The Stephen Krebecki and Karen, the reappearance and the reappearance mystery. Well, and the reappearance mysteries. If there is anything stranger than people disappearing seemingly literally into thin air, it may be that the several cases where let me go over here, folks. If you wanted me to watch more of that video, I'm sorry, folks. I really am. But I read as much of it as I felt I really could and stuff like that, and I didn't really want to shortchange you. Apparently, yeah, this gives us some idea before I continue, that all the appearances of aliens and alien abductions are going on around the country, basically pretty much inspired this Tyler guy to basically delve into the subject and stuff. But either way, we have to get into this article now. If there's anything stranger than people disappearing seemingly literally into thin air, it may be the several cases where the said person reappears, sometimes miles away and almost always with bizarre Albert Hazy accounts of their mysterious journey. What's more, on many occasions, these mind-bending reappearances occur where search teams have already searched, not just once but multiple times, that they simply could not have missed. This is another 411 case, I'd say. It sounds like very similar to it, doesn't it? Yeah, they reappear in places that they simply could not have been missed. Is almost an impossibility. Yeah, if they were missed is almost an impossibility. The most fascinating of these cases, the strange disappearance and reappearance of Stephen Krebecki in Michigan in the late 1970s. In a moment, and we will examine later, these occurrences are dotted about throughout history, and that is just the history we know about. How many similar accounts, stretching further back in the time we went, unrecorded? Yeah, going back further, how many went unrecorded? How many of these did happen? Huh? And how many went about and weren't recorded and stuff? That is anybody's guess, and it's just what is behind these bizarre encounters that have both the minds of the mainstream and the fringe arenas still searching for answers. The strange disappearance of Stephen Krebecki. It isn't the most recent case, but the encounter of Stephen Krebecki is certainly one of the most intriguing. Perhaps even more so when you realize the location of Krebecki's strange incident lies within what has been known for well over a century as the Michigan Triangle, a stretch of land and water that has a number of missing people, planes, and even boats to its name. One morning in February 1978, while a student in the Michigan area and close to Lake Michigan, he declared he was going skiing near the frozen lake. A day later, when he had yet to return, his family would file an official missing person report. A huge search effort was put in place to track down the missing student. Eventually, Krebecki's skis and poles came to light on the beach of Lake Michigan. Furthermore, footprints assumed to be his headed out towards the lake. Then, right on the water's edge, they disappeared. Well, they stopped. Okay, that's odd. Assuming, because there are skis here, this was taking place in the middle of winter. He decided to go take a swim in freezing cold water, or basically walk out onto the ice. It doesn't sound like this was frozen. So pretty much we're talking about some guy walking out and taking a swim in freezing cold water during the coldest time of the year in Lake Michigan, which is normally during this period very inhospitable to anyone doing that. Oh God. Yeah, this took place during the Michigan Triangle, or took place at the Michigan Triangle, the so-called, like the Bermuda Triangle. It's an area where disappearances and strange phenomenon happen on Lake Michigan and stuff, or in the surrounding area. So we have this very strange tale that does not make sense at all. I mean, wow, when you look at this. Can you imagine that, folks? This guy just basically, his tracks just leading to the water's edge and just disappearing. No other tracks. And it doesn't even look like his tracks go into the water. It just stops at the edge of the water. So what happened to of Stephen Kabacki here? What the heck happened to this man? Just as our last case, there's no that we examined earlier with Granger Tyler. No one knows what happened to Stephen Kabacki. Oh, well, Stephen Kabacki did come back, though. He was found. So that is strange as well. Which is what happened to these men. Just what is the truth of it? Yeah. I mean, what were these men abducted by aliens? Or rather, in Granger Tyler's case, he's a contactee and basically went willingly with them. But here, this sounds especially with this man's tracks, basically, well, they find his skis and they look at his tracks and it goes up to the water. It sounds like this man just willingly went with these creatures. Not really. Maybe it does sound like maybe they, well, I don't know, altered his mind, telepathically controlled him, and then have him willingly travel onto their ship. Could be as well, folks. Either way, let's continue with the article. Yeah. There was no indication as to where he had gone. Oh, 6 fiend info. New site with hot girls. Okay, we have some guy called Sex Fiend here. Thanks for the chats. Either way, let's continue. There was no indication as to where, or should I say, yeah, his tracks, basically, yeah, his footprints assumed to be his, headed out towards the lake, and then right at the water's edge, they stopped. There was no indication as to where he had gone. No breaks in the ice were located anywhere. It appeared he had literally vanished right on the spot. Okay, so it was frozen over, at least a bit. Even stranger still, later, but I do think Lake Michigan never freezes over completely. I think it's too big and stuff like that because people do use it. Even stranger still, later in the day of this discovery, after already having performed an extensive search, of the area, Kabacki's backpack suddenly appeared near to the skis, and most certainly in an area that had already been subject to a search. Sounds like a missing 411 case, or maybe crypto-terrestrials, folks. Yeah. That, though, was the last anyone heard of or saw of Stephen Kabacki. That was until 15 months later, when the entire plot around his bizarre disappearance took an equally bizarre twist. A survivor of the Michigan Triangle, on the 5th of May, 1979, the doorbell of the Kabacki family home rang. Stephen's father opened the door, shocked and overjoyed and overwhelmed to see his son standing before him. He welcomed his long-lost son into the house. According to what little he could remember, Kabacki had woken in a field in Pittsfield, around 40 miles away. Furthermore, he was dressed in clothes that were unfamiliar to him. He also had on his person a strange satchel, inside of which were several strange maps that he didn't recognize. Perhaps even stranger, he was about 700 miles away from the place his skis and backpack were discovered near Lake Michigan. Following the incident, despite relatively intense media pressure, Kabacki refused to speak of the encounter. He had no memory of it, and furthermore, he didn't have any psychological problems as a result of his experience. Whether this is true or whether Kabacki simply doesn't want to speak of his encounter, only he will truly know. The entire area has a history of strange activity. In 1921, for example, the Rosabella ship was discovered overturned in Lake Michigan. Oh, okay. Oh, that's bad. I have to say, that's really bad. All 11 of the crew had seemingly vanished. There was damage to the ship, but no indications as to what had happened. Even stranger, on 28th April 1937, Captain George Donner, on board a schooner on Lake Michigan, would seemingly vanish from his cabin with the doors and windows locked from the inside. When concerned crew broke the door to enter, he was nowhere, and there was no signs of an exit out of the room. Oh God, I can't explain that. I have to say you have to go to the really weird thing there. Were the windows in his cabin big enough for him to get out of? Because I can't think of any way that he could do any other thing. Because here we have a literal case of literal, well, teleportation, and perhaps, or yeah, we have a real case of teleportation here, folks. In 1950, Northwest Airlines Flight 2501 also vanished over Lake Michigan. It was presumed crashed, although no wreckage or bodies ever surfaced. Whew. All right, those are some weird stories. Electromagnetic portals now. Let's read this part of the article. It isn't just the apparent Michigan Triangle where the strange disappearances and indeed reappearances are taking place. However, on the 14th October 1990, for example, in Alder Creek in St. Mary's, Idaho, 11-year-old Casey Holliday would vanish while walking his dog. Search teams with trained search dogs would go over the entire area, but to no avail. However, again, despite the area already having been searched, he was eventually found alive and well, if dazed in the bed of a nearby creek. Bizarrely, his socks and shoes were missing. He had no memory of what had happened and where his shoes were or where he had been. Incidentally, in the immediate moments prior to his disappearance, a bizarre storm developed, which is quite often the conditions in other strange vanishing areas. This has led some to wonder if electromagnetic forces are perhaps creating portals or rips into other dimensions. Even more recently, on 22nd September 2012, a 53-year-old Linda Altega and her brother Eddie Huff were hiking in the Arkansas's Ozarks woodland. Then things turned strange. Eddie returned to their destination, claiming he had left his sister at a relative's house. However, upon the realization she wasn't there, a search for her began. She was eventually located deep in the forest, seemingly extremely disturbed from her encounter. According to Linda, her brother had become injured somehow and she had gone for help. Although she was uncertain about the actual circumstances of the separation, she would claim that she soon found other hikers, but that she couldn't speak with them, try as she might. They simply acted as though they couldn't hear her or see her. She could also see very weird people like shadowy figures hiding in the bushes. The perplexing case of Amber Rose Smith. Back in Michigan, in Newark County, in the summer of 2013, a 2-year-old girl. Okay, this all sounds like something from this sounds very weird, folks. Yeah, this Amber Rose Smith would vanish while standing in front of her home in broad daylight. Her father watched as she played with her family's pet dog. He would quickly go inside the house only for several moments, but when he came back, only the 2 dogs remained. There was not a sign of Amber Rose, nor where she had gone. An immediate search got underway with hundreds from the community volunteering to help to try and find the missing girl. There was, however, no sign of her anywhere. Then the following day, once more in a location that had previously been searched, she was discovered in the middle of a road 2 miles away from her home. Her age would mean she couldn't convey the circumstances around her disappearance. She was, though, in a state of shock and disorientation. Needless to say, everyone involved or even aware of the case questions just how such a young child had gotten so far so fast, avoiding 100+ man search team. Not to mention the temperature would have dropped in the dense woodland at night, even in summer. Whether Amber is able to remember, I guess yeah. Or that's just very strange, isn't it, folks? Whether Amber, well, I keep stopping like that, folks. I just want to delve into this. How did a young child do that? How did she not be found by hundreds of people in a search team? And how did that happen where she was found in an area that had already been searched? And what happened to this girl? Why couldn't anyone see her or find her? Either way, if you read a bit more of this, whether Amber is able to remember in the future or even willing to divulge the events of the strange 24-hour period remains in question. The real-life Mr. Wolf account. These strange encounters are just contemporary occurrences. There are numerous of such events from the 1800s, for example, such as the tale of a 3-year-old girl from northern Michigan in 1868, while sitting with her father at a lumber camp run by him, when she would vanish without a trace. He would recall how she was there one moment and then gone the next. The panic-stricken father obtained the help of 2 local hunters and proceeded into the woods to search for the young girl. They would call out her name for hours until the dark of night took over, so that that the search had to stop. So that the search had to stop. They returned from the woods, the young girl still missing. The following day, the girl's father and the two hunters set out into the woods once again. Ugh. At first, there was no sign at all of the girl's location. Then the sound of a young girl's voice was heard. That is very strange as well. So they couldn't find her, but then they started hearing her voice, or hearing a young girl's voice. I gotta say, folks, that feels like they're going into a trap. I'm glad that I would have done it anyway for my own kid. But yeah, it sounds like they couldn't find her. It sounds like all three of those men could have ended up disappearing with a young girl. I mean, how many cases of that has happened as well, folks, where people looking for a missing person disappear as well? Because, yeah, that just feels like they're going into a trap. But I would have done it anyway. Yeah, very weird. Either way, then the sound of a young girl's voice began to reach them from nearby, although sounding muffled or muted. The two hunters went in search of the voice, eventually coming up on a river. It was as they were approaching the riverbank that they heard a large splash and witnessed a dark shape apparently swimming away from them to the other side. Moments later, they noticed the missing girl standing on a log nearby. They would note how she was missing several items of clothing. At first, the girl was unable to speak of the incident. However, she would soon speak of the large figure, Mr. Wolf. She claimed who had been held her prisoner near the water. He had apparently eaten her hat and taken her shoes. Okay. Mr. Wolf, huh? Furthermore, she was to remain there forever. Although it sounded like a fairy tale, it is an intriguing account. Yeah, could this very well have been some sort of werewolf and dogman encounter? Or, as it said, is this like something out of a fairy tale, like crypto-terrestrials, folks, or maybe something else? I mean, it really does sound like it came from a fairy tale. This could very well have been a fairy encounter, who are supposedly, or who are the crypto-terrestrials. That sounds like something you'd see in a movie, doesn't it, folks? Or at least something in a fairy tale. Mr. Wolf. Was it a dogman or a Bigfoot she encountered? Or was it, as I said, a fairy that she met? Vanished from the right under their parents' nose. In August 1897, 6-year-old Lillian Carney was picking blueberries with her mother in Maine when she simply vanished. Over 200 people would join in the search for her. Her discovery came just short of 48 hours later. Dazed and in a trance-like state, she would state to her parents that she had been in the forest where the sun had shone the entire time. Nobody is sure what she meant. It is certainly strange, given the apparent overcast, cloudy conditions at the time of the disappearance, not to mention a good portion of that time. Yeah, a good portion of that time, huh? That sounds like she went to the world of the fairies and stuff like that, folks. It sounds very much like the green children of Woolpit, where they came from a town named Saint Martin, where they came from where they came from a place called Saint Martin's Land that was in constant twilight, no matter what time it was. It sounds like she was in a similar area that was in constant day. Very weird. Either way, there was a good portion of that time was spent in the darkness of night, when this incident took place, folks. Might she have been in some kind of artificial structure? Might this account for be one of alien abduction? Was the sun some kind of constant artificial light on the ship? Or might the impending weather again suggest some kind of transportation into another realm or dimension? Perhaps the constant light was a result of some kind of rip in space-time. As outlandish as those notions are, no more than how a young child could simply disappear from right under the nose of her parents for 2 days and then suddenly reappear again. The following year of 25th August 1898, an incident bore remarkable similarities to that of Lillian Carney. This time, 3-year-old Alice Rachel Peck would attempt to follow her mother as she picked berries. However, while doing so, she became lost. Her mother raised the alarm, and a search party went out into the surrounding land and woods. She was missing for 3 days before her discovery. 5 miles away, the young girl was in a trance-like state, but not for long. She soon remembered walking barefoot along a strange road. By the way, folks, sorry about keep stopping and starting here. I just wanted to delve in. I was hoping that would just delve into your minds how terrifying some of these stories are, especially with the children ones, or with the or if you could imagine being one of these adults disappearing and then finding themselves waking up disoriented and basically not knowing what was going on in a field, like that first story we read about. Very weird. Well, the first story, this article we started reading about. Either way, I just wanted to, every time I stop, I was trying to basically just delve home to how horrifying this all is. Just simply just appearing there. Either way, maybe I should stop that and just get back to the article. Either way, she soon remembered walking barefoot along a strange road and that the black man guided her back home. Wolford, although the exact location is unclear, another intriguing account from 1898 is that of a young boy known as Rufford. He would claim to be practicing archery near a river when he suddenly felt the urge to catch fish from the water. He would go to the bank of the water and set up stone traps. As he was doing so, a stranger appeared out of the woods. He said to Wofford that he looked tired and he should accompany him back to his home for dinner. Wofford would claim the stranger looked pleasant enough and so agreed. Once there, he ate with what he presumed was the stranger's family. When he saw one of his own friends there, he became completely at ease. After dinner, he played with the other children and eventually fell asleep at the house. The following morning, refreshed but concerned that his family would be worried about him, he thanked the family and said he must return home. In response, the kind stranger led him outside to a junction in a path. There was an orchard on one side and a large cornfield on the other. The stranger explained which way to go and to reach his destination, and then sent him on his way. Rufford, did as he was told, and then he turned around to wave goodbye once again. Wave once again. When he did so, the stranger was no longer there, and bizarrely, so was the orchid and the cornfield. He spun around completely and found himself in the middle of the forest, trees all around him. Shortly after, his family and their search party found the confused boy. Incidentally, his friend he had seen would state he had never been to such a house. Okay, folks, very odd stories. What do you make of them? Do you think they're real or not? Do you think people can disappear and then reappear? Do you think, like as we've touched, sometimes these people do not reappear and stuff like that? But what is the real answer to these encounters? Did Rifford here get abducted by aliens or fairies? And is there any difference between these kinds of entities? Were they actually advanced entities or just basically magic users? Maybe they were wizards. Or maybe there was something else completely. We do not know. We only know that he saw his friend there as well. Could that possibly have been some sort of basically shapeshifter he saw, who basically read his mind and decided to shapeshift into his friend so he'd be more at calm with them? And then they returned him home the next day when he decided he needed to go back home. It seems very odd. It sounds very much like these people may have protected him. Perhaps they abducted him themselves, so they wouldn't basically disappear for good. What I'm trying to say is that maybe some other entities or something took an interest in Wofford, and this goes with all the different cases of where people basically return to their families. Maybe they abducted him and kept these other entities from abducting him, possibly forcing him into slavery or some other horrid fate or some other horrific thing that could happen to him. Yeah. And then they return him, knowing that he would be safe back at home now. Very interesting if true, folks. But we're at the end of this live stream, so please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you. The there is misspelled. It's There. It's there, not there, as it's supposed to be spelled. It's, There. Hit that like button for me. Leave some comments down below. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that will give you all future notifications. And please share this video out. Now, folks, please go over and subscribe to Creepy Little Book. Creepy Little Book is, like the Art Bell radio show. He delves into the weird and paranormal like I do. He does short videos on paranormal events and encounters and other weird things and subjects. But he also does live streams around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock a.m. at night, where he talks about ghosts, monsters, cryptids, all the weird things that go bump in the night. And every time you watch one of Creepy Little Books' live streams, you learn something new about all the things that go bump in the night. So go and subscribe to Creepy Little Book on YouTube and on BitChute. And then go and subscribe to Robot Co-op. Robot Co-op is like Mystery Science Theater 3000. You know, that old show that basically, roasts movies, only they basically are a live streaming gaming channel and they roast video games. They use these two robot puppets in their live streams that make the show even better. You're going to love their horror game live streams on Twitch on Sunday, though, because they are just fun. So go and subscribe to Robot Co-op on YouTube and on Twitch. And then go and subscribe to Stitched Together Picks. Stitched Together Picks is a horror movie review channel. The show is hosted by the maniacal cinephile who has multiple personalities. So you're not just getting one character, you're getting a whole lot of them, and all of them are fun. You're going to love his reviews of horror movies, folks. So go and subscribe to Stitched Together Picks on YouTube. And maybe BitChute. Or just on YouTube. Remember, folks, down in the descriptions, I left links to Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, and BitChute. Use those links to go and subscribe to me on those websites. I also left a link to Twitter. So go and use the links down below and subscribe to me on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, and BitChute, okay? I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. Please be sure to come back again tomorrow with another great live stream.